Shavua Tov, Parashat Tisa, Moses rushes down Mount Sinai with the tablets, with the 10 Commandments on them in his arms, as soon as God tells him that the people have made a golden calf. When Moses sees the golden calf and the people celebrating around it, he smashes those tablets, even though they have divine writing on them. God himself, as it were, wrote those tablets. Nonetheless, Moses smashes them. Not only is there no negative consequence to Moses for this action, God actually congratulates him. According to the rabbis, God said to Moses the same thing we say to a Jew who's had an aliyah in the Beit Knesset. We say Yasher Koach, which means good job, basically. Why was that a good job? What were the alternatives that Moses had? Well, if he couldn't, to give them to the people after they had done a golden calf doesn't seem appropriate at all. To return them to God, that's even worse. Because that would be basically saying to God, we give up, we're not accepting the Torah, we can't have it, you take it back. That's giving back a gift is the ultimate rejection. So that's not an option. So he couldn't deliver it to the people, he couldn't give it back to God. There's a story, by the way, about the destruction of the second temple, that the young priests, when the building was burning, went up to the roof with the keys to the temple and said, we were not meritorious to save and protect this building, and they threw the keys towards heaven. And the rabbis say that a palm of a hand came out from the heavens and caught those keys. My teacher, Harav Aaron Soloveitchik, explained that this was a mistake. These priests gave up too soon. They should have held on to the keys until the last possible moment, because perhaps had they held on to them, the temple might have been spared or rebuilt in a much speedier fashion. So Moses couldn't do that either. So he had no choice, pretty much, other than to break the tablets, or so it would seem. So why is God congratulating him for that? It seemed to be the only option. I believe there was another option. We'll suggest it a little bit later on. Now, after he broke those tablets and went down and made order with the golden calf, he comes back up for another 80 days to come back to get a second set of tablets. And when he gets a second set of tablets, he puts them in the Holy Ark, but he also puts the first broken tablets in the Holy Ark. Wow, is the Holy Ark a geniza? What's a geniza? A geniza is a protected box of some sort to keep papers and writings that have the divine name or verses from the Torah on them. One is not allowed to throw those things away and treat them disrespectfully, so therefore we put them in the geniza. The Holy Ark is now a geniza for the broken tablets? Moses could have made another ark for the broken tablets. Why are they put in the active ark that's going to be in the Holy of Holies in the sanctuary? In order to understand the answer to these questions, and that answer is a very, very critical and crucial understanding of how we relate to God, we need to understand the riddle of the golden calf itself. What were the people thinking? How could they say, when Aaron crafted this golden calf out of the gold through the fire, he brought it out, they proclaimed, these are your gods, Eile Elohecha Yisrael, these are your gods, Israel, that brought you forth from Egypt. Excuse me? Were they not watching the same movie that the rest of us were watching? There was no golden calf that rescued them from Egypt. It was God in heaven. What exactly was going on? There are some rabbis who say that indeed it was idolatry, in which case we have to say that Aaron's role in this whole thing was being obstructionist, because the impetus for the sin was a miscalculation of the calendar. What do I mean? Well, Moses said to the people, I'm going up to Mount Sinai for 40 days and nights to receive the details of the Torah. The people assumed that meant that he'd be back on the 40th day, but he meant he'd be back on the 41st day. And so when he didn't show up, the people got all panicked. Moses is dead, they thought. We don't know what's happened to him. So they come to Aaron and they say, please make a god that'll go before us. Make an Elohim, whatever that could mean, a god that will go before us. And Aaron says, okay, give me all your gold. And when Aaron tells Moses the whole story, he says, I threw the gold into the fire and out popped this golden calf. How did out pop that golden calf? The rabbis say that perhaps there were some Egyptian wizards who came along with the Israelites who knew the black magic arts and could craft a golden calf out of fire somehow when nobody was looking. That interpretation is one interpretation. The Ramban has a different interpretation. He suggests that they were simply looking for a replacement for Moses. They say it in so many words. They say to Aaron, Make us a God that will go before us, because this Moses who brought us forth from Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. And the word they use is Elohim, which can also mean judge. And well, Moses was a judge. They were simply looking for a replacement for Moses. How, you may ask, could a golden calf be a replacement for Moses? Wouldn't a living, breathing person, wouldn't perhaps Aaron himself be an appropriate replacement for Moses? Well, I saw a very, as a side point, it's not really crucial to our topic, but as a side point, I saw a very fascinating blog on the Times of Israel from a Dr. Frankel, who did some research and said that in ancient Egypt, they had, you ready for your Phil Rizzuto line, a holy cow. People who don't know, Phil Rizzuto was a longtime Yankees broadcaster who always popularized the frame, holy cow. They had a holy cow who was an oracle. They would go to this cow, and somehow this cow would answer questions. I don't think the cow spoke Egyptian. Probably they had some kind of system of interpreting its movements or something, or sounds that it made. I don't know what. But somehow they would get answers out of this cow. Yes, the ancient Egyptians were quite stupid. Anyway, so the concept, though, of a holy cow, and when the cow dies, they look for a new calf. There's a whole ceremony where the calf, when they find one that has pure color, no black hairs, that's also reminiscent of something in our Torah, they take it in a golden chariot or a golden cage, whatever, to the temple where it will then be the scholar in residence. So we have gold, we have calf all together, and oracle. So perhaps that was what their impetus was. At any rate, there are numbers and numbers of interpretations, and in fact, all of them are true for certain people. There were some of them in the people who worshipped this calf. 3,000 people were killed out of 2 million. That's not such a big number, but they were the ones who actively worshipped it as an idol. And then there were others who had different understandings of it. And so one can say that all of the interpretations may have been correct regarding some of the people. The Kuzari, a great work written by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, a famous medieval Jewish scholar and poet, is a polemical work which explains a lot of aspects of Judaism. And he has a go at explaining the golden calf, and his explanation is quite satisfying. He says, because otherwise it doesn't make sense how the people could so quickly fall so far. He says that the people took a look at the commandment to build a sanctuary. They said inside the sanctuary, you're going to have the Holy of Holies with the Holy Ark and the golden statue of the Keruvim, of the cherubs, which are two infants, the images of two infants on top of that Holy Ark. Now, the 10 Commandments include the prohibition on making a graven image. So how come we're allowed to have these cherubim, these Keruvim? There must be some distinction. So they said, well, perhaps what it means is that you're not allowed to make a graven image if you're going to worship it. But if you're going to just use it as an intermediary to worship the true God, like the cherubim, according to their perception of what the cherubim were to be, which was wrong, but their interpretation, then it would be okay. And they perhaps had even intended that the tablets with the 10 Commandments would serve this purpose of being the intermediary, something that is connected to God. Goodness gracious, it's got God's handwriting on it. It's going to be connected to God. That'll be in the Holy of Holies with the cherubim, with that golden statue, and that will be their focus. But a problem happened. Moses didn't come back with the tablets. He didn't show up. He may be dead. There may therefore never be tablets with the 10 Commandments, nor an ark, nor the cherubim. Well, what are we going to use to connect us to God? So they took a symbol that they may have recognized from Egypt, a golden calf, not meant to be the object of veneration and worship, but perceiving that this calf somehow that God would connect to it, and the Israelites would then connect to God, who was connected to this golden calf. So in this way, the Rabbi Yehuda Halevi and the Kuzari, he mitigates the extremeness of the sin, gives an explanation which could fit in, and it fits with what Aaron says to them after the calf comes out of the fire, whether he actively crafted it or not. He declares, Chag LaHashem Machar. There will be a festival to God tomorrow, not a festival to the calf, a festival to God, because there was no perception that the people were replacing the one God. They felt that they were doing something which was fine, and they were quite happy about that. but they were making a grievous error. And so, based on that explanation, when Moses comes down and he sees what they are doing, now he had a choice to make. He did not have to, he couldn't give it to them, he couldn't return it, but he did not have to break them. I think he could have hidden them, the tablets, the first tablets. He could have put them in a place where nobody would find them. He could have gone down to the camp, made order about this golden calf, gone back up to Mount Sinai, prayed to God, achieved forgiveness, and then when the time was ripe, when the people were ready, go and get those tablets which he had hidden, the original tablets, no need for a second pair, bring them down and give them to the Israelites, but he did not. He broke the tablets. And God said, Yishar koyach, that you broke the tablets, and then he put them in the ark. Why? Because the truth is that the ark and the cherubim and any other physical symbol in this world is not connected to God. We are connected to God. In Parashat Terumah, when God commands us to make the tabernacle, he says, you shall make for me a sanctuary and I will dwell in their midst, meaning the people's midst, not the sanctuary's midst. The sanctuary is not connected to God. People make a terrible error if they think the sanctuary is connected to God. I'll connect to the sanctuary and thus I will be connected to God. No, the sanctuary shows you how to connect to God yourself. So too it is with all physical symbols. We have a commandment of fringes of tzitzit. On the tzitzit there is supposed to be one thread which is sky blue. And the rabbis say, why that color? Because it is similar to the sea, which is similar to the sky, which is reminiscent of the divine throne of glory. One could ask, why not just simply say that this blue is reminiscent of the divine throne of glory? Why go on this whole journey through the sea and the sky first? The answer is because the tzitzit are not connected to God, but they make us think about the sea and how vast it is, and how powerful God who created the sea must be. But then we think about the sky and the heavens, which is even vaster, which is infinite. And that already brings us to a greater appreciation of the divine throne of God. In other words, the physical symbols teach us that we connect to God. There is no physical symbol that can connect to God. Now think about this. Moses, by breaking the tablets, puts into those broken tablets that exact lesson. Why? Because if there's going to be any object in this world that's connected to God, it's going to be the tablets that God himself wrote. This is God's writing. The Torah says it, "V'michtav michtav Elokim hu." This is the writing of God. And that can be broken? If it's connected to God, there's no way it could be broken. Yet it can be broken. And so Moses is saying that this, no matter the fact that God wrote on it, is still only a physical object. You cannot connect, you cannot rely on any physical object, any intermediary to connect to God. You, each and every one of you, must connect to God personally, directly, yourselves. And that is the lesson of the broken stones, and that is why they are put into the ark together with the complete stones, because the lesson that they contain is of equal importance, if not greater, than the 10 Commandments on the complete second set of tablets. We say in our daily prayers, the Shmona Esrei, and we start off the Shmona Esrei saying that God is our God and the God of our forefathers. Now, if I'm going backwards, because our God means now, and our forefathers is in the past, so I should continue going backwards. I should say the God of Jacob, the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham, starting from the later and then going back to the earlier, but no. We say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if that's the case, that we're going in order, we should say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our God. Our God should be last because that's the latest in time. That's now. But it's not that way because the rabbis are teaching us subtly that the connection we feel to God must be personal. Elokeinu, he is our God. But we may want to understand better how to connect. So for that, we then go back to Avraham, who found God in his own way, and Yitzchak, who served God in his own way, and Yaakov, who struggled to bring God into this world in his own way. In other words, every physical thing we have, even our patriarchs, our fringes, our ark, our cherubim, they are all there simply to show us how we connect to God. They shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in them. And I think that perhaps one could say that the sin of the Israelites, therefore, was not a lack of faith in God at all, but rather it was a lack of faith in themselves, in their own spiritual power. as we talked about last week with the garments of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest, that they are not to be construed as being miraculous in and of themselves, but they enable us to achieve the Holy Spirit, the connection to God. They show us the spiritual power within each and every one of us. And so that is the lesson of this week's Parsha. Never to doubt ourselves. We can always connect to God. We have tremendous spiritual power and reserves within us. We just need to ignite that fire and use all of the physical symbols that God gives us. God allows certain physical symbols and others he does not. It is God telling us how to perceive him, so it's got to be on his terms. And if he says make an ark and make cherubim and make a menorah and make whatever, the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, those are the things we make. But if we have some great idea, I'm going to make something else, that is already a misrepresentation, and that is a dangerous slope, because once one physicalizes, as it were, God, one can devolve into idolatry. Jeroboam, who did the same thing when he split the kingdom, he didn't want his whole kingdom going to Jerusalem, to the temple, so he set up golden calves. Didn't he read the book? Didn't see that this didn't turn out well? The answer is no, he made the same mistake. He said, what did they get punished for in the Bible? They were worshiping the golden calf. Our people won't worship it. They'll worship God, but the calf will just be an intermediary. Wrong. Does not work. The moment one does that, it's a slippery slope, and one can completely distort the entire ethos of the Torah. We have tremendous spiritual power. Our connection to God is direct and individual, and all of the physical things, a synagogue, a temple, they are there to teach us and guide us to forge that connection ourselves. Shavua Tov.